welcome everyone. Welcome to the Sabian studio. We're here today with Mina Teague, Sally and John's daughter, so another generation of family in the business. Also Randy Ross, my partner in product development. So we're here to answer some of your questions today. First of all, we'd just like to thank everyone for joining and talk a little bit about this year is very special for us. This is our 40th year in business since 1982, and there's a lot of product and a lot of sonic water under the bridge, if you will. So I was just quickly going to run through some of the highlights of the last 40 years, and I've been lucky enough to be here for all of those. So I've seen a lot of product development and a lot of innovation through those years. But starting out in '82, we just had the basic AA and HH series, and very few additions for the next few years as the brand began to be known out there, and we started to grow. 1986, we started with Unirolled, I think the first major cymbal company to do Unirolled cymbals, and that was B8, B8 Plus, and it moved on to different series after that. '89, we worked with Jack DeJohnette on the original DeJohnette series. I'm sure a lot of you would remember that. Just jumping ahead, we had a factory edition in '91. '93 was a big year. We actually introduced the AAX series, and that's been, a solid series for all these years since then, and it's done very well for us. Also in '93, we had the pleasure of working with Ed Thigpen. We did a number of models with Ed, and the Larry London ride, that very sought after ride that we did with Larry London. Again in '94, we did a encore series with Jack DeJohnette. We did a cymbal with Ed Shaughnessy. And moving forward in '96, '97, we actually built a new factory. We had outgrown the old factory, and we moved into this factory, the new factory on the other side of the road. And we wondered what we're going to do with all the room. And we've added on 4 times since then, so we soon filled that up. '98 was a big year. We had Terry Bozzio join Sabian, developed the Radius series. Chad Smith was here working on some cymbals. Will Calhoun, we've done a number of projects with Will. Evelyn Glenny's Garbage. David Garibaldi with the Jam Master series. And '99, Rod Morgenstein. We developed a tri-top ride with Rod. We did VFX with Tony Verderosa. Carmen Appice, we did a few models. Then year 2000, Jojo Mayer, who worked on the Fierce Ride, hats, and a number of models. Portnoy's Max series, Virgil Donati, Phil's Choice, Chester Thompson Liquid Ride and Precision Ride. And then in 2001, we moved into the HHX. We had the Manhattan rides and hats for a year. And then the big one, the Evolution series, working with Dave Weckl on that. And that was tremendous for Sabian. Putting a cymbal out there kind of broke some boundaries and gave the players sounds that weren't available until then. '03, XS20, and another big one, 2004, Neil Peart was here working on Paragon. Back in 2006, Dave was back working on Legacy, and then a few additions later on. 2008, APX was a highlight. Jack DeJohnette for the 3-point ride again. We've had Jack, we've done a number of projects with Jack. Jumping ahead to 2015, we did the Big and Ugly collection. XSR replaced the XS20 in 2016. FRX, frequency reduced cymbals, in 2018. And we did a limited edition Garibaldi Soul Side ride. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. We did the Shimmering ride with Jack DeJohnette. And then in 2019, the Complex, HHX Complex, and that is, a huge step forward for us, and the cymbal is in large demand. We did a couple of flat rides with Chick Corea and Dave Weckl, the Serenity ride and the Royalty ride. So that's kind of a quick overview of the 40 years, very quick actually. But we're happy to have everyone with us, and we'd like to answer some questions on product and anything to do with Sabian. So Mina?
Alrighty, Mark. So first and foremost, thank you for being here with us today and taking some time out of your day to answer for the people. We're going to jump right into it with Daryl Emery Jr. Daryl is wondering the state of reintroducing the refresh program here at Sabian.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that question. Yeah, that's actually been in some of our discussions lately on getting closer to the customer. So that is on the table. We haven't set a date or anything yet, but after COVID, manpower was reduced and things were compressed a bit, and we had to eliminate a few things that we were doing just so we could fill the capacity and demand out there. So hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to bring the refresh back, but we'll have to see how that goes.
Also from Daryl Emery Jr., he's wondering about any new models coming into production, something like a sand finish or a raw finish, anything like that coming up.
Yeah. Well, we're always working on new product. Every day we're coming up with new ideas and things. As far as raw finishes, we're always looking at the appearance of cymbals and how that affects the sound. And nothing that's really close to being finalized for that, but we'll certainly take that into consideration when we're looking at developing new product.
Thank you for sending those in, Daryl. Moving on from Bruce Kimmel, what ride cymbal is as close to the Jack DeJohnette 75 anniversary that you can make HHX?
Yeah, good question. I mean, that was a prize cymbal. I mean, it's very sought after. And the limited edition cymbals that we make, we kind of make those for a reason because they're very special and outside of our catalog models sound-wise. So there isn't anything that's exactly like that, but there are cymbals that have some of the characteristics of that. One would be the HH Vintage Ride. That would have some of the tone of the hand-hammered cymbal that the Shimmering Ride had. And also one that's made a little bit different, but has a lot of the same character, would be the Anthology High Bell 22. I mean, that's a very sweet ride, very good stick articulation, crashability, nice bell. So I would suggest you check that out for sure. But our lineup is huge, and there's a lot of sounds out there. They're not always exactly maybe what you're looking for, but you can find your sound with the Sabian cymbals.
We're going to jump to one from the live chat from Baz Prince. He's wondering about the sound check program being more available in Europe and what's the struggles there.
Well, we're very familiar with Baz. Hi, Baz. Randy and I are always looking at your posts and your big cymbal collection that you have. Yeah, so thanks for that. That's something that we talk about with Peter Stayers. Peter looks after international sales, and that's something that we want to open up a little bit more worldwide. It's a little bit hard logistics-wise because you're so far away. In North America, we can send product out, and it gets there within a week, and you have a chance to check it out. But internationally, there's a huge cost to ship things quickly. So we'd have to tie in with distributors. Now that's something we're looking at, and we're also looking at other programs that may give you a similar result, some Area 51 ideas. So just keep an eye for changes in that, and hopefully something later this year we'll have a program that will supply prototypes and R&D cymbals to you more efficiently.
Well, Baz says he's going to visit us soon here at the
vault,
so he can take a look himself.
Well, yeah, he'd be a kid in a candy store if he was here, that's for sure.
We're going to jump back to the written-in questions from the other day. Jerry, I'm sorry if I say your name wrong, Vonavaren was wondering about a puzzle-type gong that had 30 parts to it.
Yeah, that would be a tough one. I think it would have quite a sizzle to it. Typically, cymbals are one solid piece. There's no moving parts except the edges. So, yeah, I don't know. That would be kind of like a stack. I guess, yeah, Randy's pointing at the Zen. I guess there's more parts on that, the Zen effects. But, yeah, thanks for that idea. We'll give it consideration, but maybe we can attach some ozone holes to a gong and you'd have your parts. But
So Claude Hoffman is wondering about the sound control cymbals. He's wondering if there's ever any chance to see that concept come back, but within the HHX line this time.
Well, that's funny that he should ask that. Actually, the sound control ride is actually Andy Zildjian's favorite ride, the 22 HH sound control. And Andy's always been, pointing that out to us. And we're actually working on a limited edition cymbal with one of our artists this year that is incorporating that style of hammering into an HHX cymbal. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure we're real excited with where we are already, but it's early on in the development.
Sean Baker is wondering what the best ride we have with the best stick definition and minimal wash that is price friendly.
Yeah. So depending on the price that you're referring to, XSR it's a professional quality cymbal. It's B20 alloy, the same as all our high-end cymbals. And we have the rock ride in that. So that's going to be very articulate, very in control, and priced at a pretty good level, certainly starting out. And we also have in all our series, we have the raw bell dry rides in AA, AAX, HH, and HHX. So, I'd certainly check those out depending on your price point that you're willing to go to.
This one's pretty funny that just came through the live chat. Something for the two of you, Mark and Randy, to work towards. Manny Defied is wondering about a foldable cymbal that he can pack up and take away in his book bag.
We'll pack that up with the gong with 30 pieces. Yeah, we made a cymbal. It wasn't foldable, but we made a cymbal that had the edge curved down. We hammered across the bow of the cymbal, and it was more of an effect than a traditional cymbal. But yeah, well, thanks for thinking outside the box on that one. We'll have to give that one a little bit of thought.
We're taking notes over here.
Yeah.
So back to Jerry. Jerry was also wondering, is it possible to make a crescent accelerated metal type cymbal to replace the element cymbals that we once had?
Yes, it certainly would be possible. Our custom shop program has been suspended temporarily, so when that opens up again at some point, you can certainly put that request in, and we'd be glad to develop that cymbal for you.
Brandon Johnson in the live chat is wondering what our equivalent to the competitors with the A Customs and K Suites would be if you're looking to switch over to Sabian.
Yes, so A Custom would be very similar to our AAX. Bright, modern sounding. Now the K Suites, we have the HHX Complex, and actually we had the Complex first, so I don't know who was copying who there, but yeah, so the Complex, I have one right here. These are beautiful cymbals, highly in demand, and we've had issues even keeping up with production, which has been great because it's a high-end cymbal. It's a sound everybody's looking for, that dark, complex sounding cymbal.
Ryan Lorky is looking. He's wondering if we think that there are any gaps in the Sabian sound offering, and if so, what are our plans to fill those spaces?
Yes, so we're always looking to see if there's any gaps, and we're asking our dealers and players and customers out there, what are we missing? Are we missing anything? Because we try to get ahead of the curve. There's always trends in sounds, and we like to be ahead of it rather than chasing it. So we have some exciting models coming out this year that we think is going to fill a void that the drummers are looking for, sound-wise and visually. So we are trying to fill all the sound palette that we can with all our additions that we add. Now, having said that, each year we look at our catalog and we have models that maybe don't sell where they should. So we're always trying to keep the SKU count under control for dealers and distributors also, and for production sake. So if a SKU doesn't reach a certain sales number, sometimes we look at suspending that temporarily or permanently.
Thank you, Mark. Sam Chino was wondering if any other ratios of alloys have ever been tried here.
Yeah. Hi, Sam. Yes. And again, actually, that's something we're looking at right now. We're always looking at different alloys, and we have in the past. Certainly B20 is our core metal. We've had B8, we've tried B10, B12, and we're also looking at a different alloy right now to see if we can make it work. It's very early on also on that, but we are looking towards that because depending on the alloy, it has different sonic properties, and that's what we sell. We sell sound. The cymbal is just a vehicle to get it to you.
Thank you, Mark. Jimmy Retza is wondering, he says, happy 34 musical years to save. He's been playing for 34 musical years here at Sabian. Sorry about that, Jimmy. Chuck Jennings is wondering if there's any plans for another run of the Todd Suckerman ride.
Well, I guess, boy, where'd they come up with these questions? They seem to be reading our minds here. There's been a huge demand for the Sessions ride, so So we are talking about that. We can't say right now firmly what we're doing, but Todd has kind of reached out to us and would like that. Now, there's a lot of value in the limited edition symbols that are out there too, serial numbered with certificates. So if we ever did anything, it would be a little bit different that way. It wouldn't be presented in the same way. So, but we are looking at that. So thanks for that question.
Justin Bonnet is also wondering why they've changed the type of hammering on the HHX Extremes and Fierce Crashes.
Yeah, no, we've heard that a few times, and it's when we're hammering cymbals, the hammer pins are wearing all the time, and they tend to get, we start out a bit smaller, and then they get bigger, and there's different settings. That sometimes the hammering pressure does vary a little bit, but we're on top of that as much as we can be we're getting back to that real aggressive hammering that we want on the Fierce and the Extreme. I mean, back when we introduced the Fierce, the way it was hammered, that was a fierce sounding cymbal. Now a lot of cymbals have that growl and that aggressive attack. So we even have to be more fierce for it to be, live up to the name of the Fierce Crash and Extreme. So we're doing our best to present that to you.
Ryan Lewark says thanks for answering his question mark, but thank you for tuning in and writing into us, Ryan. Moving on, the at the _ Muskox is wondering what the best China cymbal ever made, and why is it the 19-inch Paragon?
Why is
it?
Well, that is one of the best Chinese cymbals we've ever made in my mind, and we've made a lot of great Chinese cymbals. Our best-selling China is actually the Holy China, probably in 19-inch. But, the 19 Paragon is very close to our heart. It's got that dark, trashy attack. And, we really love it. And we're glad that you're very fond of it, too. And actually, we're down the road, we're working on a larger version of that. Maybe not in the Paragon collection, but something a lot bigger, but has that same type pitch and attack. So stay tuned.
Baz Baby _ is wondering why Sabian Big and Ugly doesn't have stamps, and is it specifically the Monarch XS20 is not stamped?
Yeah, actually, the Big and Ugly do have stamps. They're just printed with a copper color, and they're a little bit hard to see unless they've worn off. But we do print them underneath with the Sabian, and at 3 o'clock on the top side we have the description, the model name and size.
This one's one that you can go on about for a minute. Eric Nanya is wondering, for small room recordings and small room gigs with bass, acoustic guitars, keys, and vocals, a bebop drum set, mic'd up, bass drum, 14-inch HH hats, what 2 crashes and 1 ride and 1 China would leave space for vocals in amongst that mix?
Yeah. That's a good question, and there's probably a lot of different answers to that too, depending on what type of sound that your ear really is in tune with. I would think like an Evolution, like 1618 Evolution, like that type of a thin cymbal that's going to be in and out quickly. It could be even the new Complex series would be good additions. And it could be 1618, 1719s. Typically, you want a good 2-inch difference in the size to get a good pitch separation. Was he also asking about rides?
Yes. So he's wondering 2 crashes, 1 ride, and 1 China.
Okay. Yeah. So the ride. Again, I'm going back to the anthology. I mean, that sits so well in the mix. Great stick definition and crashability, very versatile. And I think I would, if you had the anthology ride, could be low bell, high bell, a couple of Evolutions or Explosion Fast AAX, and a good set of hi hats like Evolution, Complex hats, or even step up to Artisan if you would like. But they're all great cymbals and very versatile.
RT Ellis, our good friend RT, shout out to you. Nice to see you on here. He's wondering your thoughts about some HH Explosion crashes that could be comparative to our competitors' polyphonic crashes. Yeah,
so HH Explosion crashes. Yeah, RT, you're always coming up with great ideas. That's certainly something we could try. We have the AA Explosion, the HHX Explosion, so it would make sense to try something in HH. some of that more aggressive hammering combined with that, maybe if we had a complex explosion would be really cool. And you'd know what that would sound like right off the bat. So, uh, yeah, that's something that we can put in our back pocket to give a try. And we're always working with RT on his ideas, and I think he's probably got more cymbals than a lot of drum shops out there. So we really appreciate him.
Uh, User at Rudimentans is wondering the chance of creating a spiral cymbal like Dave uses.
Yeah, Chris has been playing. We were probably the first company to make. We've nicknamed it the Sprimble, half spring and half cymbal, and we never took it to market. But Dave is always looking for something unique, something no one else has, and Chris always plays two of those on his setup, or pretty much all the time. Uh, I guess one of the things that hold us back with that is the amount of time it takes to make them. So occasionally, especially through when we were doing custom shop, we would get orders for them, but it takes a lot of time. The time we cut them, sand them, and get them prepared. So maybe if and when custom shop comes back, we would be glad to do that for you. But nothing in the short term for that.
Thank you, Mark. I Am Music Alex X is wondering what made you create the old Pro Sonic line, and if you remade it today, would you use a different bronze to remake it?
Yeah, good question. So Jonathan Mover came to us with that idea. He was one of our endorsers at the time, and it was basically to make a sheet cymbal that had some of that high frequency that alloy delivers, but just lower it just a little bit and create a different acoustic. And it did well for quite a few years. We had a lot of competition with that because we had our B8 Pro, we had our Pro, and then we had Pro Sonic, all at similar price points. And as far as trying it in different alloys, we have tried it. It's just not something that's gone to market yet. We actually made some for some Belgian artists that were visiting us a number of years ago, Bruno Castellucci and Toto Pozantak, and he loved it. He said, "Oh, it's like an old K cymbal that I've had 20 years ago." But it's certainly something we've looked at, and maybe in the future we will dig into it a little bit more. But thank you for that.
Ete to Bruno is also wondering, when you have the option, would you have the option to custom order cymbals with the old logo on them?
Yeah, we made the switch a couple of years ago from the old logo to the new, and we're pretty firm on that. I mean, it was a whole brand change. It was a huge step for us. But if we were changing our brand and we looked the same, what's really different? So we changed the logo, and we're really sticking to that. I mean, we can't jump all over the place. We can't be putting new and old logos out there at this time. So yeah, that's not something we can really do. But we do understand the history and everything behind the old logo, and there's a lot of cymbals out there with that old logo. So we certainly understand, but we are sticking with the new logo.
Jose Perez is wondering what the best recommended line of our cymbals is to play bebop jazz.
Well, for jazz, I mean, I don't think there's any one series. There's a lot of models that will fit into that. It could be, typically like an HH cymbal, like a vintage ride or a jazz ride, Manhattan style, or again to the anthology. Even some of the crescent cymbals that we did with Jeff Hamilton, the 22, I think would certainly fit into that. And Jeff's 20-inch works very well as a crash, and we have dozens of choices for hi-hats that would certainly fit into that as well.
Mikey MC Drums is wondering, if you were in the Sabian vault and had to assemble the most versatile set of cymbals that would work in most situations and genres, what are you choosing?
Yeah, that's a tough one too. There's just so many choices, and again, it depends on your price. What you're willing to spend too. I mean, one of my favorite rides is the 22 Legacy Heavy. I guess we're just calling it 22 Legacy now. Certainly the complex for crash. You could go with the complex anywhere 16 through 20-inch sizes. Artisan, they're a different flavor from complex, but They're premium cymbals and really fit in just about every application. And hi-hats, I would have to say complex hi-hats or artisan hi-hats as well. That would be my favorite as far as the setup.
Mr. P. Puyetta, sorry if I just said that incorrectly. He's wondering what happened to the SR2 line of cymbals, and is it possible to see any other types of similar projects in the future?
Yeah, the SR2 was a program we had to refurbish cymbals. Anything that came back from trade shows or artist returns that were still great cymbals, but they were used. So we applied a special finish to them and lathing, so there'd be no confusion as far as what they were. So yeah, when COVID hit again, that's when we started cutting back on some of those refurbished cymbals, and not saying we wouldn't bring it back at a later date, but at this time we don't have any plans. But we are always working towards delivering high quality cymbals at a fair price point. So stay tuned for that. There may be something in that price point range that appeals to you.
Thank you. Andy Slater Drums is wondering your thoughts on adding a Mel Lewis inspired China to the Vanguard line.
The Vanguard, yeah, that Vanguard is something we had in the HH. Yeah, that sounds like it'd be a cool idea. Very smooth attack China, very rideable, nice bell. Yeah, that's something we can also put on our list to do, and certainly check out. Randy and I are always coming up with new ideas, and if we come up with a new idea, well, we have to try it. So thanks for that input, and we'll certainly take that into consideration.
So Mark, earlier we had mentioned the refresh program and kind of where and why that went, and Paradigm Shift here is wondering the same for the custom shop, kind of why and where, and if there's any plans to reopen that.
Right. Yeah, so we put a team together at Sabian, and we came up with a list of ideas of how we get closer to the customer, and I think we had 10 different ideas, some things simple to do, some a little more complicated, and still be able to maintain our delivery and production that we are today. So we had about 10 items, and that was on the list. So we haven't forgotten about it. And we'd love nothing more than doing custom cymbals because it teaches us a lot. We're trying new things. We have a lot of ideas, but we don't have all the ideas. So we really appreciate the input and ideas that people come to us with as far as custom shop. So there is value in that. And at some later date, hopefully we can bring that back.
This one is a pretty interesting question, something that I don't know myself that I think a lot of people will be intrigued by. Roughly how many prototypes make it into production every year?
Make it into production?
Make it into production.
Yeah, we're doing prototypes all the time, but it's probably a small percentage that actually make it into our catalog. Once we get onto something that we think is going to be a winner, we concentrate on that, and we, really bore into the details of it and make sure it's right where we want it when we introduce it. But it's hard to put a number to that. I don't know how many prototypes we would make in a year. It would be hundreds and hundreds, but it'd be a lot of similar ones also. And typically throughout a year, there's only so many things we can introduce and have enough marketing dollars behind it. So, typically it's, 3 or 4, half a dozen new ideas each year. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes than some people realize. You guys are always have your hands in some sort of pot.
Every day.
Andrew is wondering your thoughts on introducing an artisan effect cymbal to the current line.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah, I mean, the artisan is fairly, basic. We have our rides, we have light rides, crashes and one weight. Hi-hats, we have light and regular or medium. But an effect would be a cool addition. There's lots of ideas for that. You could have just a china, you could have a splash, you could have a ozone, you could have an arrow. Lots of ideas. So yeah, great idea. Thank you.
Tony Hodge on here is saying that he's having trouble with breaking his cymbals often. Tony, I'll also let you know that our cymbals do come with a 2-year warranty period, and if you reach out to our customer service, they'd be happy to help you with that. But he's wondering, for those strong, heavy hitters, what would be your recommended cymbals for that?
Yeah, typically you would want a little bit heavier cymbal than some of our thins if you're a strong, heavy hitter. A good example of that, just recently, Brian Adams has been on tour, and Pat Stewart is one of our endorsers, and he was having an issue also with a few cymbals, and we gave him some of our 20-inch AAX medium crash, and he's been texting back constantly saying what a great choice, and Pat plays hard and heavy, and he hasn't had any issues with breakage. So I would certainly recommend the AAX medium to start with for sure.
Pat is something to watch. He's very entertaining. He's a
absolutely.
heavy hitter to say the least,
he's,
but
he's solid.
he really goes for it. So, Roy Pradama would like you to know that you do not age and to keep it healthy, Mark, and you look great.
Well, thank you.
Andy Slater is also wondering, what is our most successful Sabian cymbal to sell to date?
Whoa. I would have to say if I had to pick one cymbal, and that's only by volume, outside of the B8 and sheet cymbals, it would be our 18 AA Explosion Crash, AAX Explosion. That's a cymbal that's always in huge demand. It's a great sounding cymbal. It's not super thin, but not super heavy. It's kind of that perfect weight, and that would be probably the number one cymbal.
Awesome. Wayne Baker is wondering why the SR2 cymbals are finished the way they are, and can they be lathed down to be smooth?
Yeah. So the SR2 were lathed differently just so there'd be no confusion mixing them up with a regular cymbal. So we would put a special etching on them and then line over it, and there was no way to really remove that without removing a lot of weight from the cymbal, and you certainly have to have a lathe and know how to do it. But SR2s could have been made out of anything from an XS20 to an Artisan, so it was always a treasure hunt when you were out there, picking from SR2. You could get some real sweet cymbals at a really good price at the time. So, who knows, that may come back someday, but and there's probably still some out there, so be sure to check them out.
Lovely. Mr. Lindsay McDonald is wondering what your best tips for cymbal care are. Let's say your top three tips for cymbal care, Mark.
Well, when you're playing, certainly don't have them tightened down too much. Make sure your cymbals can move on the stand, and play glancing, don't hit directly. And something that's really important is the way you protect them when you're not playing. Do not set them on a concrete floor, anything that can mar the edge, because a slight imperfection in that edge can be a weak spot for future cracking, and it's just a place for something to happen. So try to prevent that if you can.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Lindsay, for that question and for tuning in. Jose Perez is wondering, is it difficult to fabricate a flat top ride?
Yeah, the flat top rides, really no. It's not that much different than a regular cymbal. It's just that when we shape it, if it's hand hammer, we bump it into a flat profile and then hammer it up. The only difference is we don't have to press a bell into a flat cymbal. So, one step less, but as far as shaping it, hammering it, lathing it, it's the same as any other cymbal.
Awesome. Aaron Levy is wondering what's a good ride for big band?
Yeah, big band. I'm just trying to think of when we had the Ed Shaughnessy ride, like a 21 AA medium heavy. That was certainly a great cymbal, and that's what that cymbal was designed for. I would think in our lineup today, 22 AAX medium would be a great cymbal. Even the heavy, I don't think they're too heavy because we've lightened the weight a little bit on a lot of our specs. Even though it says heavy ride, it's still has wash and a little crashability. So I think for big band, I would check out the 22-inch AAX heavy.
Lovely. Shaking Two Trees 2012 is wondering which Ozone 18-inch crash is the sweetest sounding in your opinion.
We have quite a few Ozones. I think I have to go back to the original. I've got to go back to the 18 HHX Evolution Ozone. There's just something special about that cymbal that I think in my mind, it's a little bit superior, and it's got a little bit of the dark quality. If you wanted a brighter sounding cymbal, maybe go to the AAX. But if I had to pick one, it would be the Evolution.
go. Aaron is going to go check out some clips for his big band symbol there, so
Cool.
thank you for that suggestion, Mark. Arrow is wondering, are the Apex series made from B8 symbols, and what would Mark recommend for a versatile ride?
Yeah, the APX. I assume he's referring to the
Yes.
APX. Yeah, they're actually made out of the B8 alloy. Now we had a different tempering process that gave those symbols a different appearance at the time, and we no longer offer those. But if you're looking for that type of sound, I would almost move up to the XSR. It's a different alloy, but it's a very professional sounding symbol. Maybe a 21 ride in that case. You know, it's got brights and highs, not maybe not as much as the APX ride had, but you know, it's very versatile, and that XSR series is just an all around great series and a great value for the money too.
Lovely. Kay's Pocket and Groove was made a custom symbol when we did the Meet the Masters tour in Dallas, and he's wondering if he can send it in to get the ink labels put on. And also wondering if you could send it in to get a 24-inch version of it.
I guess we'll have to wait until Custom Shop opens back up, or refresh at least for the logo. So at this time, we can't do that, but hopefully later this year we may be able to do something there. So thanks for getting a symbol on the tour. I don't know if it was a stop I was at, but it was a lot of fun getting out there to all the dealers, making symbols at the store, and a lot of interaction. Great ideas came from it. It was a very good experience for Sabian, and hopefully you drummers as well.
Awesome. So Mark, I know that we have a lot of prototypes and limited edition runs and whatnot come through the vault, and Matthias is wondering why, if we're ever going to make our catalog more consistent, and why we do the limited edition runs, and sort of the explanation behind the ever changing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, our catalog is just, it's always changing. You know, like I said earlier, if symbols don't reach a certain sales number, sometimes they go away for a while. So, you know, we're trying to offer the symbols that are the most popular out there. And the limited edition, we like to do that because we like to incorporate artists' ideas. You know, in the past, we used to have the signature series, and we were very deep into that at one point. So this is kind of, you know, a change from that approach. Now we're doing limited editions, so we're doing whatever the number may be, 250 of one model. Typically that they sell out very quickly, and there's nothing saying that if we do a limited edition that it won't end up in the catalog at a later date. But it's certainly it's a great testing ground for those models also. So that's why we do that, and we like to be everything to everybody, but sometimes it's hard to do that. So, but thanks for that question.
Awesome. Baz has jumped back in here, and Baz says that he is absolutely loving his 40th anniversary ride, but he's wondering what the difference between the 2013 Symbol Vote Raw Bell Artisan was, and if they are similar at all.
Yes, no, that's certainly based on the same symbol. And when we look back to develop a 40th anniversary symbol, we looked at something that was you know, a high quality instrument, something that we've done in our past, and that's why we chose that. It was a very versatile symbol, and being a member of the artisan collection, you know, certainly very prestigious. So, you know, that's kind of why we chose that, and you know, we knew it would be loved by many.
Awesome. Mark Rosenthal is wondering if there were any additional Paragon models worked on with Neil but were never released.
Yeah, there actually were. Randy and I come across them in our Area 51 all the time. You know, when we were working on the Diamondback China, we come across one the other day that had Rattler written on it. You know, different profile, just different things that we've got rides in there that says Neil's favorite, or, you know, back when we first started, before we had finalized it, you know, maybe didn't have a hand hammer bell, but, you know, that was a starting point and a lot of history there too. So there's certainly different models that we worked on, and that weren't the final product that we took to market, but still great symbols. So thanks for that question.
Ario Pratima is wondering a story about Jeff Tane and his octagon. Wondering if you have anything in your story bank about that.
The Roctagon?
Yes, his octagon. Octagon.
Yeah, 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 Jeff's been here a number of times working on, selecting symbols and modifying things for him. It's, as far as the Roctagon, that's not really fresh in my mind on that one. I'm sure, we made our first Roctagon back in 84, 85, and we've made many different variations of it since then. So I don't know the specifics, or I'm not remembering the specifics of Tane's, but yeah, certainly. And I actually, just you mentioned Roctagon, we've got a number of prototype things we've been working on, different looks. We actually have one here, I believe a 20-inch or 21, kind of part ozone, part aero, but certainly a demand out there for that type of symbol.
Awesome. Nive81880 is wondering, has the lathing and the hammering changed on the HH series from the HHX or HH remastered? Sorry, and from the HH remastered days to the most recent HH rebranding.
Yeah, no. Since the remastering of HH, nothing has changed. Now, what may change a little bit is we have more people doing it. So, instead of 2 or 3, maybe at one point, now we're 6 or 7 just about every day, and that's mainly because of the complex line. And so everyone hammers a little bit differently. Some of the guys hit a little harder, some hit a little lighter. So they do vary a little bit that way, but they're all working towards the same template and profile. So the end result should be similar. Maybe the looks may vary a little bit depending on who hammered it. It's very interesting. Some of the guys can look at a symbol, especially the ones that hammer them, and they know I hammered that symbol, and they vary from one to another. And we can tell one hammer person in particular. Randy and I can tell if he hammered it just by how pronounced the hammer marks are versus the other guys. So, and we're very consistent on the hand hammering, but you may get a little bit of variation in looks.
Awesome. Brandon Johnson is wondering kind of the history behind picking some of the artists that we've collaborated with. He's wondering if people have to be on the scale of Dave Weckl or Neil Peart, or are we ever going to do some smaller collaborations with Matt McGuire, Hayes Mays, some of those names that maybe aren't as familiar with most?
Yeah. I mean, we're always open to collaborating with different artists. Typically, we like them to come to us with ideas rather than us going after them just because they're a high-profile name. But our artist relations director, Chris Stanke, a lot of times he directs us. He picks the artists that we focus on too. So, we've made symbols for Matt McGuire. A lot of the symbols he plays are our normal symbols, but Chris is always getting prototypes from us and getting them out there to the artists. And that's the case this year and what we're going to be introducing for a limited edition symbol. So yeah, we're always looking at new artists and younger artists too. We're trying to get out there and not use the same people we've used for the last 20 or 30 years. We want young faces and new faces, and be appealing to everybody.
Absolutely. Hayes Mays was a recent signee of ours, and we're really excited to have him. He's great.
Yeah.
So Terry Drums is wondering if the hammering on the Hammertone Jeff Hamilton symbols is similar to the HHX and HH, or was that unique in itself?
Yeah, so Jeff's symbols, the Hammertone collection, it's your traditional hand hammering, but what's different about Jeff's symbols is the profile. His Ride, China, they're hammered much more because the profile is so high, and we start with a flat blank, and to reach that profile that Jeff likes, and the taper and thinness of the edges, and the stick articulation takes a lot of hammering. There's some of the guys that do the hammering that are more experienced, 30 some years of doing it, that do it much easier, maybe a little bit better than some of the other guys, so they kind of concentrate on those. But that would be the only difference. It's still the same hammering style. Now, one other thing I'm just thinking of, on his symbols, we use 2 different size peens. We use a larger peen and a smaller peen, and we apply those in different manners too to create the sound that Jeff likes. So a little bit of variation, but still the same style hammering.
Awesome. Paradigm shift again here. He's wondering if we have a Sabian equivalent of the A suite ride, and if there isn't, is that something along the lines of what we would be looking to expand to?
Yeah, yeah, the A suite ride. I'm just trying to think what would really fit into that sound. To me, it would be more like some of the new AAX, maybe the explosion crash. You know, a very clean stick articulation, but some wash and crashability. That's the only thing that's coming to mind clearly right now. But certainly check out some of our sounds online for sure. There may be other ones out there that fit that sound.
Definitely. If you check out our website, there's quite a few products under them that will have a sound clip or a video that you can check out as well for research purposes. Mark Rosenthal back in here again, and he's wondering what the most difficult and or time-consuming product in the catalog is to produce.
Good question. A number of years ago, I would have said the AAX Omni, or any Omni for that matter. I mean, that was getting the process down on that was certainly challenging. You know, we had we had some good arguments back and forth in production before we really nailed that down. And it's still one of our best-selling cymbals today. But more recently, the HHX Anthology cymbal, there's a lot that goes on to make that cymbal the way it sounds, and it's pretty much all hidden because it's a very traditional looking cymbal. It's, you know, extensive hammering, lathing, and then it's totally lathe. So everything is kind of camouflaged under that with that traditional look. And but that would be one of the, you know, the more time consuming. I wouldn't say hard, but it just takes more time cymbals to actually manufacture.
Arrow has jumped back in here as well, and he's wondering what your holy grail cymbal of choice is, Mark.
That's like asking who's your favorite child. Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, and a lot of times it really depends on what you're working on because you get right into it and very close to it. I mean, more recently, I think I'm really in love with the anthology cymbals. You know, I love those cymbals, the way they sound, but that's really fresh in our minds, and we're certainly working on some new sounds that are very exciting too. So, anthology right now, but that could change.
So, Stratus X is wondering if you can give us a short insight into the development process of new cymbals. Do you start with a particular sound in mind? Do you kind of go off an old prototype? What's that look like for you and Randy?
Yeah. Normally when we're starting to develop a product, especially if it's an artist, we try to find out what home plate. We try to find home plate. So we both agree this cymbal sounds like what, and this is as close as what we have to what you're after. But so once we're firm on that, then what direction do we want to go? Do we want it more articulate? Do you want it more open? Do you want it higher? Do you want it lower? You know, what characteristics do you want? And once we know that, then we know in our mind what different hammering styles, how that affects sound, shape, feel, what bell size, what thickness, what lathing, hammering, just all the things that go into making a cymbal. We pretty much know what direction we have to go, and we don't always get it the first time. You know, we take our best guess at it, and then we make it, and then maybe we have to alter it a little bit. So it's really knowing cymbal production and what does what, and then based on the sound we're going after, whether it's something we come up with or something an artist comes up with, or just anybody making a custom cymbal. You know, it's really that. And cymbals aren't just sound; they're feel. Like that's why people like to play different cymbals, and they need to feel a certain way. They need to be fun to play. Like maybe they get the perfect sound, but if it's hard to play and they don't get the right feel, they're not going to play it very long. So that's all important in product development.
Absolutely. Nathan Saunders is wondering what 10-inch cymbals are releasing soon, and we've also, we just had the Sick Hats go out. So something about the 10-inch cymbals that are on in your back pocket, Mark.
Yeah. So yeah, this year we had a number of 10-inch cymbals with the sick hats, the compression stacks. We had the complex arrow that's been out for a little bit longer as a 10-inch. We are working on a new collection of cymbals and some new models that may have a 10-inch. I really can't share much about it just now, but 10-inch is probably one of the most popular splash sizes out there. So, we're certainly, if we come out with a splash in this collection or any of the new models, it will probably be 10-inch. So, thanks for that, and we'll keep that in mind.
Andy Slater is wondering if you have any recollection on the development of the orchestral Forza cymbals. He plays 17 inches. He loves them. He wants to know if you have a little bit of a history to give him there.
Yeah, the Forza cymbals, we actually, Nick Petrella, when Nick was with us, and I worked on the Forzas. And before that, we worked on some of the artisan traditional symphonics, medium light, medium heavy, suspended artisan, synergy, a number of things. But yeah, the Forza cymbals were just a lower profile, a smaller bell, but had that artisan character that we're trying to capture. Maybe a little more articulate, a little more in control. And that was kind of the thinking behind the Forzas at that time. Now, since then, sales haven't been that great on the Forzas. More the traditional symphonic has been more popular, but there's certainly a need out there for that Forza type sound. But thanks for that question.
Awesome. Hayes Mays is wondering what your personal favorite stack combination is that you've ever put together, whether it be a catalog or just a unique creation that you've thrown together.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things you can do with stacks. One thing that we really found is that if you put an ozone on top of a china, and it could be 16, 16, 14, 14, whatever, it really works. And we've got a number of different stack options out there also. So if it could be a Monarch ozone on top of any china. We actually sell one with the XSR china, the Monarch on the top. And that's a great stack and at a very affordable price point. Something that's really cool at one of our Volt drops is Zen Effects this year. And actually, we have one right here. That is a great stack. If you put that on top of almost any crash, you can put it on top of just china, just about anything. Or you can even take two of these and put them together, and they're a great stack. So something to check out if you have the opportunity to get one of these.
Thank you for that question, Hayes. You've started a little bit of a conversation here in the comments as well. A few people are saying that the Muskox favorite stack is an SR2 10-inch thin on top of a 14-inch Evolution china.
Yeah.
That one sounds pretty interesting.
Right.
Randy threw his in there as well. He says it's a 14-inch prototype that they're working on, so you guys might have to stay tuned to find out what that is. Stratus X is also wondering once the prototypes are decided upon and you've actually started developing the cymbal to perfection, how long does a cymbal take to produce before it goes through to market?
Yeah, they would follow the same process as just about anything else we make. I mean, typically we're planning 3 weeks in advance. I mean, we can certainly push things through a lot quicker than that, but if they go through normally, from our rolling to our cupping to our tempering, and then out to hammering. We like the blanks to actually sit a while before we hammer them because they shape much easier. So yeah, I would say 2 to 3 weeks typically is a normal process for any cymbals that we produce.
This will definitely depend on the cymbal that you're working on, but how many prototypes do you produce before you're happy with that final product?
Yeah, again, that varies. The limited edition we're working on right now, 22-inch. We made 10 cymbals to start, various hammering styles, and once we get close to pinpoint kind of the direction we want to go, then we'll go back and we'll make another 10. So I don't know. It's hard to put a number. It varies, but I would say we'll probably make 20 or 30 at least before we end up with the final product.
Awesome. Adam Stubel is wondering how hard it is to lay the china specifically.
Yeah, thanks for that, Adam. China cymbals are a bit more difficult, and typically on a normal traditional shaped cymbal, we lay the bottom and then the top. But on a china cymbal, it's just the opposite. You have to lay the top and then you lay the bottom. And when you lathe one side of a china, it goes all out of shape. It's like an old wet hat. But when you do equal work on the other side, it comes back into shape. So it is more difficult. You've got that curvature, uh, and you've got typically it's a very thin cymbal to start with. So you have to know what you're doing on the lathes in order to lay the china. And the angle of approach with the knife is a little bit different. So it is a little bit more challenging to lathe, but we've got a lot of guys here with a lot of experience, so normally it isn't an issue.
Andrew is wondering, between lines and series, is there a difference on time that the cymbals need to be aged on the shelf in the vault before they're ready to go?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we like the cymbals to age, at least for a few days. Certain models, we like them to age for a week. In particular, the evolution crashes in particular, we found that we got better results if the cymbals sit for a week. They seem to shape better, they lathe better, and the end result is a little more pure. So, yeah, that's a great question, and it certainly does matter. That metal, once it's tempered, that metal every day gets a little bit harder, and it shapes easier. When it's first tempered, it's kind of soft, but it's funny how the B20 alloy works. It just gets harder and harder. We've had them sit around for years. The lathe guys don't like them so much when they have to lathe them because they just scream out. They're so hard, and it's harder on their knife edges too. But it's still great metal. And it's the same with a finished cymbal. Once we make a cymbal and it's finalized, that sound, whatever's there, is enhanced over time because that metal is constantly getting harder. Now, the biggest change is early on, the first day, week, month, but even over years, that cymbal changes and gets harder, and whatever's there is enhanced. Time doesn't make a bad cymbal good. If there's something bad in it, it just is enhanced over time. But if it's a great cymbal, it's really great when it gets a little bit of age on it.
Kay's Pockets and Groove. He's lucky enough to have number 306 of the H.H. Phil Collins Choice Raw Bell
Wow.
Dry Ride. He's wondering if you can recall how many there were actually made in that run.
Yeah, that program was in the year 2000, and I believe we were shooting for 2,000, but I don't think we quite reached that number because I know we donated to charity, the Children Affected by AIDS Foundation. We donated a portion of that money from that cymbal, and I don't know off the top of my head the exact number, but it was less than 2,000, but close to it, I believe.
Awesome. John Wilson is wondering how you recommend storing cymbals that aren't in use. They're not on your kit at the moment.
Yeah. So yeah, just to store cymbals is just make sure they're not under pressure pushing on this profile that would deform them. I mean, if they're in a case, a bag, laying flat, for long periods of time, I think that's probably the best way to store them. Now, having said that, we store our cymbals on racks, and they're standing straight, but they're sitting on wood, and it doesn't hurt them. We've had cymbals for years and years that stay on a rack, and it doesn't affect them. But just make sure you store them so the edges aren't damaged, and if you can lay them flat somewhere, that's probably the best approach. And make sure there's not a big heavy cymbal pushing down on a very thin cymbal that could hold it out of shape for a long period of time.
Awesome, thank you, Mark. So we are approaching the 1 hour mark here, but what we're going to do 4 more questions because you guys are just filling the comment section here now. So we're going to do another one here soon. If your question doesn't get answered today, don't worry. They are being noted, and hopefully they'll be in our next live session with Mark. Mark, Musical Seafood is wondering if you could describe and explain the difference between hammering patterns across the lines.
Yes, well, that's a good question. It might take a while, but
that was probably not the best form.
Yeah. So the hammer pattern on cymbals really affects how the cymbal sounds. So if it's an AA cymbal, it has smaller hammer pins and concentric circles, row after row after row. And that style of hammering, like we have on the AA or the Paragon on the bow, creates a cymbal that takes a little bit more energy to get it to open up. And no matter what hammer pattern you're using, you have to remember you're building a structure. It builds rigidity into that profile. So the more rigidity, typically it raises the pitch a little bit too. So the more you manipulate that surface and in the manner that you manipulate it with a hammer peen really affects how the cymbal sounds. So an AA cymbal, for an example, takes a little bit more energy to get it to open up, but it has more volume potential and a higher pitch. Now an AAX, I don't know if I have an example, a good example of one of those right here. Not seeing one right off, but here's one. It's kind of hard to see the hammering on this one though. But the AAX hammering is half-inch flat hammer marks, and they're spaced out. So by applying a hammer peen like that, the sound can travel between them. So when you excite a cymbal, the sound goes in and out from the bell in concentric circles. So when the sound wave hits a hammer mark, that's compressed metal, the sound speeds up. And when it comes out of that, it slows down. So in the manner that you hammer it, the size of the hammer mark, the depth, all that affects how the sound travels through the cymbal and really affects the sound. And that's all in combination with the bell size. Larger bells typically create higher frequency, smaller bells lower. The profile, again, flatter is darker, more bow is higher. There's so many different things. The thickness, the taper of the lathing, it all affects the sound and the hammering. Now, if I take an HH cymbal, I've got a complex here. This has two different styles of hammering. The small hammer peens are the HH, so that's really building in character and complexity. And in the case of the complex, we've added HHX, which is a larger hammer peen, and we apply that top and bottom, and that just takes it to another level. It just it's a perfect formula for a dark sounding cymbal that has cut and musicality. So really, the hammering is crucial, and we're always playing around with different hammer peens, different sizes. We're looking for the next best thing, and we've got a few things in the works this year that are variations on what we've done in the past, and so stay tuned for those.
Awesome. Sam Chino is wondering, did burying the cymbals all those years ago actually change the sound, and if so, are we planning on burying more? Was it something that we thought about doing again?
Yeah, that was quite a project. We were actually the first major cymbal company, Sam, that buried cymbals. Now you'd hear drummers talk about burying a cymbal in the backyard, and how it would change the sound. But this was kind of a marketing thing, but we didn't know the answer when we started. So we made 100 cymbals, and we made them unique. We made them 21 artisan. That's a cymbal we didn't make. And we made a big steel box. We filled it with racks so we could put the cymbals in it, and we had holes in the steel box. So the elements, the water and the dirt and everything could go through the cymbals. And we buried them for, I believe, 8 months. And we dug them out, and I'm sure it's online that you can find where we did that. We certainly have pictures of it here. And my analogy is, what changed is, if you take a jazz drummer that uses a jazz cymbal in a club for 30 years, and the smoke and the sweat and things get spilled on it, and it fills out tonal grooves, and over time that cymbal changes just because of what it's exposed to plus the aging. And the analogy is that these cymbals that were buried were exposed to water and soil and dirt. And to me, that did to those cymbals what playing a cymbal and exposing it to the elements for a longer period of time, it did that in like 8 months. So it did change them. But I don't know that we have any plans to do that again. It was certainly a great marketing campaign, and it taught us a little bit. But we don't get a lot of demand for that necessarily. I think a lot of people, if they wanted to play around with that, would buy their own cymbal, bury it, and come to their own conclusion. But certainly what is on that surface of a cymbal and age certainly does change the cymbal.
So this is going to be our last question, but kind of on that same note, Shaking Two Trees is wondering if cymbals become more brittle over time.
Yeah, cymbals should not become more brittle. They get harder, but they shouldn't. They're not more prone to breakage over time. If anything, the more you play a cymbal, it should have a little bit of movement and flexibility to the edge, so it won't get more brittle, to answer your question, but you know, is certainly going to get harder and should have more sustain and open up more and be more musical.
Awesome. So, like I said earlier, guys, if your question wasn't answered today, we are taking note. We're gonna always keep collecting questions for the next time we do a live. Mark, thank you very much for
Okay, no,
being
thank
here.
you. It was fun, and we look forward to the next time. It was
Is there anything else that you want to say to the live before we sign off here?
Well, thanks everyone out there for all your questions, and think up some really good ones that were really going to challenge us, and certainly any ideas. Send us your ideas. If there's something missing in our lineup, that something that you think that we could do that would be, you know, change the drumming world out there, we want to hear it. So, you know, keep in touch and let us know.